right now.
Oh, am I in first platoon? I shouldn't be here, John.
I can't tell you how to get out except probably go back to the breakout rooms
Let
button.
me see if I can do that. I should be in fourth. I guess I'll join breakout room and there, I should be in the fourth now.
I guess he is.
This has all the trappings of when we showed up on the first day.
Yeah.
Still didn't get Tony.
Well, while we're here, I'll just start off a conversation. I ended up in Sierra Vista, Arizona, retired here when I got out of the Army and worked for private sector for 10 years, and then retired full time and have done nothing but volunteering since then. I don't know if you're familiar with Fort Huachuca. That was my last assignment. And Sierra Vista is a community outside of Fort Huachuca. It's about a mile high, so it's not the normal Arizona weather that you read about or hear on the news. This morning went for a bike ride and it was 33 degrees. Of course, it warmed up pretty quickly when the sun started beating down. That's kind of I guess you could, Chuck and Bill, you could kind of tell the rest of us where you ended up.
All over the place. I got out after Vietnam. I've regretted that over the years so many times. It's unbelievable. But after I got out, I went to Michigan. Well, I should explain. In Vietnam, I was on an advisory team down in the Delta. I was the intelligence advisor, had a recon platoon, and was part of the Phoenix program. And so when I got out in '68, I went to Michigan State and got my MBA, and then went to work for a bank in Michigan and ended up with one of the big 8 accounting firms on the consulting side, Touche Ross, and down here in Washington. I live in Virginia. And I stayed there for a number of years. I was an officer at Freddie Mac for a number of years. And then I worked for Pro Systems for a little bit. And then I pretty much went out on my own as an independent consultant. And I worked up on Wall Street during the 80s with a company that no longer exists, Salomon Brothers. Mm-hmm. And we put on, my client was actually the guy, he's very well known. His name was Lou Ranieri, but one of the other clients I had there, one of the other partners, was this guy named Jay Conley. And Jay was a member, he was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, and for part of his assignment, he was with MACV-SOG. And Jay and 5 other people decided that what we really needed was a ticker tape parade. And so there were those 6 people, and then 3 of us sort of in the second group. So there were 9 of us all together, and we put together what turned out to be the largest ticker tape parade New York had since MacArthur. And we had everybody who showed up, and the internet really wasn't available then, and I couldn't find any of you guys. But all the Wall Street firms pulled out their ancient ticker tape machines. And for a period of about 3 months, they just ran ticker tape. And so when the parade came across the Brooklyn Bridge, then it entered down into lower Manhattan, and all this ticker tape was thrown out. It was just unbelievable. And Westmoreland was there. We had an event the night before, and another friend of mine who was in Vietnam and prior to that had been a general's aide over in Germany, was picked out by Westmoreland to sort of take care of him. And Westmoreland was really in his cups that night. And actually, he was really pretty drunk and very apologetic about a lot of things. And the next day, he was back to normal. So we had the parade, and we built a memorial down in Lower Manhattan. You may have seen it. It's a glass structure that has excerpts from letters that troops wrote home. And that came about because we did a book called Dear America, Dear America, Letters from Vietnam. And people submitted their letters, they're in the book. And one of the guys was a good friend of, I think his name is Fuchs, who was the founder of HBO. And so they came up with the brilliant idea of putting together a movie called by the same name, Dear America, Letters from Vietnam. And I think it was CBS that opened up their archives. And so the footage is all documentary footage. The movie really only means something to people like us, but HBO produced it for nothing. And we got a number of actors like Harvey Keitel and others to actually read the lines in the movie from the soldiers. And so both the book and the movie were quite successful. Nothing like, a big Star Wars movie or anything like that. But then after that, I focused most of my work on a number of consultants a number of clients I had. Now I have one client who's in the cybersecurity business, and they do most of their work for the intelligence community and special ops community. And I don't know anything about any of that. I have a hard time getting on Zoom, but I do strategic work for them. And the other activity that I'm doing, my significant other, Jeannie, is very involved, has been for a good part of her career with soldiers and Marines and sailors. She's a counselor. And so she's done a lot of work at Walter Reed with a lot of the people who have come back from the recent wars who are traumatically injured amputees and TBI people. And so I help her an awful lot with that. The program that she works on, she's independent also, but the VA has a program where people who are injured can get their educations paid for if it leads to a job. And so she's helped a lot of them with that, through the testing process and helping them get to the point of where they can get a job. And there are a lot of companies who are looking for people like this. Some of the people end up being truck drivers, but a number of them have ended up going to Harvard or Yale, come out as lawyers. Especially the special ops guys have extremely high IQs, as you can imagine. And so the VA will pay for their education as, whatever they're capable of doing, as long as it leads to employment. And the client that I have now, most of them are former military. They basically are hackers when you get down to it, white hat hackers, and they do both offensive and defensive hacking. But the group actually has investments in a number of companies. There's one company that's really interesting. It's focused on preventing active shooter incidents in schools. And that's formed by 4 former Navy SEALs who are incredible to work with. If you remember back in our days in OCS, it was always about accomplishing whatever we were given to do with no excuses. And these guys have got it in spades. In fact, we have to be careful. If we suggest something to them, they'll go and do it. And we say, no, you need to think about this and how it fits in with everything. They're just so focused on accomplishing whatever is given to them. So that's sort of in a nutshell what I've been doing. Although I got out of the military, I certainly have tried to stay very close to it.
Well, thanks, Bill.
But that's about it.
Thanks. That's very interesting. And for those of you that have joined us, what I asked everyone to do is just give us a little synopsis of what you've done since we graduated from OCS, and got a good comprehensive input from Bill. And Chuck, could you enlighten us on what your life has been since OCS?
I hate to follow Bill. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd follow you anyplace. And did, actually.
Yeah, the 3 amigos are on here. So. No, it's I spent let's see, graduated in August at the wonderful Benning School for Boys. They sent me to the pre-5 course. So I spent another few weeks in the air-conditioned 4th Infantry Division, 4th Infantry Hall, and got my pre-5. And with that wealth of knowledge, they sent me back to the 5th Battalion to be a TAC officer. So that's why I still have my souvenir here.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Gee.
If you want to go back.
You're scaring us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spent the first year as a TAC officer. And at that time, even when we were starting to get out of there with graduation, OCS expanded tremendously. It was starting a company every 2 weeks. So when we left, there was a 5th Battalion. By the time I got out of there a year later, they were up to the 9th Battalion. So they raped and robbed officers as soon as they got about 3 months experience. In one of the companies, they moved them to a startup. And he got to go through that whole drill again, being a nasty TAC. And then you get to the intermediate phase and they moved you again to another startup. So actually, I ended up being back in the 53rd company. So it was a big round robin. From there, Don Gray and I shipped off to Vietnam, and we tracked each other daily. Matter of fact, I went to college with Don Gray, went through basic AIT, OCS with Don Gray. We came out on orders to the, it was 20, I think it was the 25th Division, together, flew over together, had both our orders changed en route to the 4th Division. 4th Division was decimated, as you recall, by some of the action at that time. So there weren't any officers in B Company. We both ended up in B Company. I had the 1st platoon, he had the 2nd platoon. So unfortunately, Don decided to get out. He got out after he came back from Vietnam. I stayed in. I had such a good time with Tet and Docto and all the rest of those Kontum. I went to the recruiting command and I got stationed in New York City. Recruiting. Now, can anybody imagine a worse place to be a recruiter and wear a uniform in New York City? Yeah. It was worse than being in Vietnam. I expected a Purple Heart just about every day I went to work. But got out of there. They sent me back to airborne school, refresher course, back to Vietnam. So I spent my 2nd tour, company commander and a battalion staff officer up on the DMZ. 5th Infantry Brigade replaced the 3rd Marine Division when the 3rd Marines pulled out. So we replaced the Marines with a brigade, and that made everybody feel a little cocky. But we had a good time up there too. So it was quite interesting working on the DMZ and MacArthur's Wall, and or not MacArthur, McNamara's Wall. From there, came back to the advanced course, did duty in the advanced course, and shipped off to Europe for a tour over there as company commander over there also. So I had company command in all 3 overseas tours. And at that time, I was really getting tired of smelling dirty socks and checking underwear for drugs. It was the Army was just, it wasn't the Army that I thought I knew, and it disintegrated rapidly. And I was getting a little tired of it and dragging a family around. The Army was getting tired of me too, so I made the last page of the final rift. Back into the civilian world, worked for US Steel for a few years. Decided that was good salary, but working conditions weren't too hot. Went into private business, and my college roommate and I became proprietors of a food distribution business, which I was in for, I don't know, I guess 12 years. And finally sold my share out of that. It was another 24/7 job when you're retail and in the food industry. It was too much, and the profit margins were too slim. So I decided I'd go to work for county government, and they fortunately hired me based on basically my bio from the service, because I had a lot of experience with supply and contracts and stuff like that when I was the contracting officer and a supply officer. So I was a procurement officer for a county government in Pennsylvania, Chester County. Spent 18 years doing that, which was quite interesting and quite challenging. And I found myself in a world I knew nothing about, because it came into doing a lot, primarily bid work. And I ended up having to do bid work on a new prison, a new government services center, a new courthouse, a new parking garage, all multi-million-dollar projects that I was really hustling to keep up with. But we made it. We have ended up with a really nice looking facilities. And after 18 years, I think there, or whatever it was, I decided it was time to retire. They were offering early retirement to cut back on their payroll, which I jumped on and decided it was time to retire, and it was time to move south. So we left Pennsylvania and moved to North Carolina. And I say we've been on a 15-year vacation down here in North Carolina, which we're about ready to terminate and go back north, believe it or not, where it's cold, but our family is still up there. Now, during most of this time, I stayed active in the reserves. So I actually had a dual employment most of those years. Was activated for Desert Shield, didn't deploy overseas, but I was activated. And I don't know how many of you have had reserve duty, if any, but when you get into the command level or upper staff levels, it becomes damn near a full-time job. It's a little bit more than a part-time job. So trying to balance that work and family, it was a busy time. But after 30 years, they decided the Army had enough of me, and they kicked me out, said I couldn't go any further because my time was up. I think that was the max. So I got out with 31 years credited service. Other than that, that's my life. Happily married. Have a couple kids, all still up in Pennsylvania. So we'll be going back to see them probably sometime next year when we move back north. That's about it for me. I don't know.
Okay.
Not as exciting as Bill's, but you know.
I don't know about that.
No, thanks, Chuck. You had an interesting career.
I got to spend a lot of money along the way.
Anybody else want to jump in and give us a update?
Come on, Tony.
I'm up.
You're up. Yeah, Tony.
Well, actually, before going to Fifth Third Company, I had put in 8 years actually with the National Guard with an Armored Recon Unit, and had my discharge. And then I decided to, to re-enlist, and so I met a lot of you in basic and AIT, and then first platoon. Upon graduation, I went to airborne school. They turned around and made me a training officer at the Tower Committee at Airborne School. And then I went to Ranger School. I went to Ranger with Tracy Murray. Tracy ended up going to airborne school with me, and then he became a training officer with the ground committee. So Tracy and I ended up as Ranger buddies. And I don't know if you know that Tracy was killed. He received a Silver Star and then a DSC posthumously with 173rd Airborne. And after that, I went to Jump Master School and a couple of other schools while I was at Benning. And then I went to Bragg to go through the Special Forces Officers Course, language school for Vietnamese. I was assigned to the 5th Special Forces Group. Ended up on an island called Phu Quoc Island for my first 6 months, involved with operations and search and destroy, taking out our CIDG. Of course, my counterpart, one time he even gave me a puppy, which I thought was really nice. And it disappeared. And then he asked me over for dinner and he served me my puppy, which I had. One of those many type of interesting things that I think happen when you're in Vietnam. And then suddenly they pulled me out of there and they brought me to Canton to make me the headquarters commandant for the basically special forces in D Company. They made me a headquarters commandant, which sounds good, but it was a hateful job. I did a good job, but I hated every minute of it. It was just an administrative job. And my only excitement was going out with a fact now and then and flying some operations. From there, I went to, well, actually, I had applied to go to SOG at that time, and I got my top secret security clearance to go to SOG. But before I went, while I was waiting to go, then I suddenly got an assignment to go to Pathfinder School, 6 months with Spanish language school. And then I had an assignment with the 8th Special Forces Group. Because of my experience with the Airborne School, it made me the commandant of the Airborne School for the 8th Group. A couple of good mobile training team assignments. And, for example, Venezuela, teach a course in parachute packing and maintenance and aerial delivery, because I had picked up my rigger's license along the way too. Then I ended up as a commanding officer of the underwater operations in Paris Scuba Rescue School, and we became the Apollo recovery team for Central and South America contingency team. Did a lot of jumping, been to Halo School, ended up working with the United States Army Southern Command parachute demonstration team. So I was doing a lot of exhibition jumps around Central and South America. Came back to, well, actually at that point, my time was up and they said they were going to send me to the career course as a captain. And I said, no way am I going to go to the career course, because I'd be promoted, and I certainly didn't want a promotion. I was really enjoying being a commanding officer of Special Forces A team. So I decided to get out at that point, went to graduate school at Florida State University. But while I was there, I was able to sign up with a Special Forces Reserve unit. And so I had this unit, which underwater operations training. Also took them to Halo School because I was with the 11 Special Forces Group.
Was it?
Reserve Special Forces, and had the only underwater operations in Halo qualified 8 attachment within the 11 Special Forces Group. After I got my 20 years in, thank goodness for TRICARE, I then went on, I got a second master's degree and then my doctoral degree in the area of exercise physiology. and spent years teaching exercise science and running a school, training people to become personal trainers. And so I do a lot of work with the National Strength Conditioning Association, the American College of Sports Medicine. And actually, in addition to my teaching, I've been doing a lot of expert witnessing in litigation death cases, for example, people dying in fitness facilities due to incompetent trainers. So I said, got 20 years in, and most of the time since the military, which I got out in 78 with the 20 years, it's been teaching, basically working as a professor, and loving my work. And I noticed that I think I was the oldest guy going through OCS because I was 20 when I went there. So I'm not a young kid like, Bill Boyle there and Chuck Bracken. And Chuck mentioned the Amigos, and that's because the three of us have been communicating with each other. In fact, we all three got together for the 50th OCS anniversary. So I guess that'll wrap it up for me. And I think it's time for, hey, I think John Black, it's your time to hear from you, isn't it?
Well, I started off, so I'm going to a very brief comment, but I think I'll wait till the end and because I'd like to hear what the other guys have to say. Mel, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Mel, my roommate,
Yeah, how you doing, Bill?
doing good. Mel and I used to remember how they would change rooms up.
Yeah,
So, I mean, change roommates. So we figured it out, and we had a few arguments that we think kept us together for, were we together for the whole time, Mel?
no,
Just part of it, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Good degree on how to spit you on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
They don't do that anymore.
No,
Yeah.
they don't. One of the funniest episodes was we had the main bathroom downstairs,
Yeah.
and we cleaned it so well that we lost the plug in the urinal because we took it out and got all the built up salt out of there. And I put a sign on there, don't use whatever the reason was. And there was a new TAC officer, I can't remember his name, tall guy. And he came in and he used that one and peed all over his boots because the plug wasn't in the bottom. And he started yelling and screaming. I pointed at the sign, there was nothing he could do. But after graduating OCS, Lieutenant Crosby had his last joke. He reassigned me to 53rd Company as a TAC officer. So I spent the first year with, Holman was there. I think Olson was one of the TAC officers. And my roommates in our apartment was Bart Dingus and Rex Kroll. So we were there a little over, one cycle, started a second cycle. We got orders. Well, I got orders. Barch was attached to the airborne school. So I got orders to Vietnam. We got to go over on a boat, the USNS Geiger, and we got to eat in the officer's mess. I gained 8 pounds going over, but they put me in charge of being the mess officer. So I just kept out of the way of the Navy chief and watched him push 1,300 guys through in a little over an hour. And when we got to Vietnam, I got assigned to the 1st Infantry Division. Olson and Hayes and Bill James had all gone on the boat with us. They got assigned to a different battalion in the 1st Division. So we were close, but hardly ever ran into each other. while I was there, I was a platoon leader for 8 months, executive officer for a couple, and I got the thrill of being the company commander for a month. And when our time was up, they flew us back to Oakland. Bill James and I de-roast at the same time, but we had to hang around till midnight while they let the enlisted guys go the day early. And I drove Bill to Los Angeles where he met up with his sister, and I haven't talked to him in 20 years. I kind of took the summer off trying to look around, try to get settled. Finally went to work for a title insurance company doing foreclosures. So I became one of the Simon Legrees in the industry. And we foreclosed on everything from vacant lots to hotels. And I was there for about, I guess, 10 years, which was a long run in the title business, and got laid off and rehired about 3 months later by a different title insurance company, and found the thrill of getting health insurance between jobs that costs more than it does when you're at work. And I was at First American doing foreclosures. And then they decided foreclosures wasn't good for their image. And I moved into a different department where we would locate the properties that went with every recorded document. So we'd have to, if we were lucky, use the tax ID number. If not, we'd have to run out of legal and figure out what the property was. And from there, I went to another title company, not by choice, but the title insurance business, when their business slows down, their easiest way for them to maintain their profit is to shrink the employee base. So they're always laying off and hiring all year long. And I got laid off again. Within another month, got to work at another title insurance company in the commercial title business. So we would be doing office buildings, commercial lots, and searching the records, and giving our opinions on what type of the insurance and how to put riders and attach to it. And from there, that company was acquired by Land America. So I moved downtown to new offices in Symphony Tower, which was an amazing place to be. We were up around the 8th floor with a view. So it was kind of hard to work and not look out the window. And in the meantime, I'd gotten married, ended up with 2 daughters, and now I have a granddaughter. Let's see, I retired about 14 years ago. And my wife and I have been kicking back, doing a little traveling, except for the last 2 years with COVID. We kind of done practically nothing. I mean, our exciting day is driving to the lake, watching the ducks, but we keep in touch with my family. I got a cousin's lunch every month where about 18 to 20 of us get together. I'm in contact with the guys from the company from Vietnam. And now, after 20 years, another get together with you guys. So everything has been good.
Great, thanks, Mel. Good summary. You know, I'm noticing a trend here. Everybody has had a very successful life, career-wise and family-wise, from the sound of everything. We got two more. Gene, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, Tony. Hi, Mel.
Uh,
Mel and I came out from LA when we were first recruited. First time I'd ever been in a commercial jet. Tony was my roommate and always ahead of me, no matter what happened. He was ahead at age and ahead. And, the whole affair, really. As soon as I graduated, I was assigned as a TAC officer and spent 6 months doing that. Toward the end of my term there, I got orders from the Pentagon that had me go through airborne school, Pathfinder school, and straight to Vietnam to, they designated me CO of the 145th Combat Aviation Battalion of the 1st Airborne Brigade. And I was attached to 173rd up in Dak To for a while. Got a CIB that way. And you know, I got a lot of experience there in Vietnam doing nothing, because that's the early part of the war. That was pretty much what was going on. There were hot spots for sure. Dak To was not a pleasant place to be, except I was, you know, they had.
By the way, Dak To is where Tracy Murray was killed.
I know, and another person over there.
Did you know him over there?
There's another one, yeah. So
That was Bob Darling.
hold on. Let me get on with the career here. I was 8.5 months and about 2 or 3 weeks in the post Tet Offensive. And they woke me up in the middle of the night and said, your dad's had a heart attack. And they had arranged for me to come back to the United States. And so I came back. This was not a good time, you know. So I went into the bathroom and changed into civvies. And my dad was okay. I mean, he survived. And I ended up staying a little longer than 30 days, so they couldn't send me back to Vietnam. I didn't do it intentionally. It just happened that way. And so they sent me to Fort MacArthur, which was kind of nice because I had a studio apartment on the beach. I could commute to Fort MacArthur every day. They put me in plans and operations, which was the area where everybody goes. They don't know what to do with. And I was there about 4.5 months. The post commander called me in and said, if you extend for a year, I'll make you captain and you can take over headquarters company. And I figured that was better than any job I was going to find. So I went for it and got out after the year. I sort of was kind of anti-war. I wasn't a protester. And I was at graduate school in public administration at USC, but it was just, you know, even there, it sometimes got a little bit complicated. So let me get out of the Army. I stayed in reserve for 9 months, and then I just could not stand it. So I felt odd putting on a uniform after I'd been discharged. So that was kind of weird. I in graduate school, I was selected to be one of the interns for the California State Legislature, the State Assembly. And while I was up there, I ran into Larry Surley. He was an advocate for the milk producers. A number of other people that I can't think of right off the bat. Larry most notably, because he and I had my roommate Bill Emerson went on to become state senators, and Sterling became a Superior Court judge. So I was pretty impressed by that. I ended up with my degree, but still wasn't happy with the choice I had made about going into government. So I decided to go to chiropractic college instead. And so that was another 4 years of my life. And when I came out, I went into private practice in a little desert, sparsely populated desert town called La Quinta, California, one of the Palm Springs area. And I kind of grew with the community and helped form the city. Only true function I ever did with my master's degree in public administration was to help to found the city of La Quinta. And I was on the first city council, and about 6 months into my term, which was a 4-year term, I decided to bail on that. But I didn't really want to be in politics. Leave that to Sterling and Emerson. And I went from let's see, after going into practice, it was just kind of a, you don't make a lot of news as a practitioner. So I was in private practice for 25 years and decided to retire. I always seem to end up back in Sacramento, so that's where I am now, Elk Grove. And I add this to the story. When I first came up here this last day, there was a woman who worked for me, a massage therapist. She wanted me to meet her sister in Halong, North Vietnam. And so I went over there and met her and loved her, and she loved me. And we got married, and we've been married now going on 17 years. I had 2 previous marriages before that, and I had 4 kids and 4 grandkids. And I'm happily retired. I'm finally doing some of the things I always wanted to do. I'm not boating, Tony. But are you still running your boat? Are you still on your boat, Tony?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question, Eugene.
You still have your boat?
Boat.
I still have my boat. No, I sold that, my sailboat.
Yeah.
Got rid of that a few months ago.
Yeah. Well, that's about all I can apprise you of right now. And if I'm prompted to think about it, I'm probably going to remember everything after I get through with this meeting. It doesn't help me out with this.
Don't
So
feel alone.
I yield the floor.
Okay. I think, Corky, do you have anything you want to share?
Okay. After graduation, my brother Mike, of course, we went through basic AIT and OCS together, and we both got assigned to Fort Lewis as training officers. We're there for 6 months or so. Then Mike was assigned to First Cavalry, and I was assigned to 173rd, but I also went to Airborne School and to Civil Affairs Advisor course prior to going over. So I went over about 6 months after he did. I was mostly in Dak To, that's where I first went in. The company, they had a really bad, the company that I went into had lost all their officers. They were just coming back from being out on the field, and then there was an MBA battalion that was going inside the curve there, and they went over them and killed most of them, of our guys. I spent time with this 173rd. I was started as a weapons platoon, and then I went to infantry platoon, and then I got a recon platoon later, and then I back to an infantry. The recon platoon was reorganized as a Delta company. And I was in the field, and then I got called out of the field. My brother had gotten hit with a booby trap and lost his leg with an AK above the knee. And they flew me down to the field hospital. And I got to see him there, which was good. And he was good. He was okay in his spirits and so forth. And but when I came back after being down there for I don't know how many, just a few days and so forth, then they didn't let me go back out in the fields. I became S3 officer for the company, and then went in. Then after that, did S1. Then we had Hill 875, and that was, again, we had a accidental bombing that killed 40 of our troops, and a lot of people that I knew. I was nearby, not about, not that far. I was out in the field, but I was in that S3 role and wasn't involved on the Hill. And so after that, I did the rest of my tour and got out, and then I wanted to go to graduate school. So I moved down to California, where fortunately I met my wife to be, and I got accepted, and I got down there to establish residency, so I wouldn't have to pay out of state tuition and so forth. But I actually, when I went getting into the University of California, and when I went and interviewed there, that school wasn't for me, because it wasn't a good fit for me. And next year I started graduate school in Nashville, Tennessee, and in George Peabody College for teachers. It's associated with Vanderbilt now. And I got my master's and PhD in clinical psychology, and came back to and got married. That's the second, after a year being there. Then I came back to Bremerton, or to Kitsap County, where I was born and raised, kind of thing, and started my practice. I was my specialty, and actually in graduate school, was child and family therapy, but I was contacted by the Seattle Vet Center with their outreach program. They're looking for counselors for Vietnam veterans, and so I started with them. And Washington State was kind of unique in a way. We have our own. We had a State Department of Veterans Affairs, and I have a contract with them. And I spent the next 25 years or so as a veterans counselor, working a lot with Vietnam veterans with PTSD and various kinds of issues. Then retired in 2010. And it seems like, when you retire, I don't know if you've experienced, but you get busier after you retire than when you're retired. So it's been a full plate, in the last few years and so forth. My brother did fine. He went to Madigan, and he was at a couple of different hospitals and so forth, and had an artificial leg, and he had a store in Seattle, a wee bit of Ireland. We were Sullivan, we're an Irish family, and and Mike got into that, and it was kind of an import retail store. So he'd go to Ireland, yearly and buy his stuff there and come back and sell it at the store and so forth. And I'd like to say that he never let his injuries be his definition. He really, I know he was interviewed after he got back. There's an article in our local paper, and he said, he had no regrets. He felt bad at leaving his rest of his troop behind, that he couldn't keep serving with them and so forth, and felt bad in that regard. But he, never upset about the fact that he was wounded or lost a leg and so forth. Although it did affect him, definitely, certainly in his life since that time. He passed away in 2016 at the age of 74. And we're very proud of him and that he did well. You mentioned Tracy Murray. He was with 4th Battalion. I was within 2nd Battalion at 173rd, and it was the other guy that was killed over there.
Bob Darling.
Is it Darling?
Bob Darling.
Yes, yeah. Really sad to see him. He was also in another battalion, so I didn't see him, and he wasn't on Hill 875. That's where Tracy was killed. That was they were dug in up there. We replaced a ARVN force that had made contact, and they were well prepared for us. And platoon leader that replaced me, I was only out, a few weeks, and when that happened, he was shot up but survived and so forth. So I feel really blessed. I was very fortunate. We during Tet offensive, we were ready to go, but we had our air support was from the 1st Cav, and they were all ferrying them around. So we got stuck at a fire support base. We didn't really know what went on until later, kind of thing. But that is just the way things go. But so yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Getting old, Tony, I'm amazed that you're the oldest kind of thing. I feel pretty old right now, kind of thing. And but I'm 78, and as we all are probably in those ranges and things. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share.
Well, thanks, everybody. I guess, if we have the time and you have the interest, I can tell you a little bit more about my career. Can you hear me? I'm not.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. I just wanted to give you a synopsis, but I did stay in the Army. I liked it and did okay, and met a lot of great people. I was afraid I might not be able to meet such high quality people if I went out in the civilian environment. That was not true. When I did go and work in the private sector, I found that there were a lot of very smart and motivated and honest people out there doing the best they could. When we all graduated, I graduated, it was AIS, Army Intelligence and Security. And I applied for that because I thought it might be more interesting than just doing infantry things over and over. That was a bad choice, I think, as far as, that was not a good reason for choosing that branch. But the first thing that happened was good because I got to go to airborne school. I think that branch had 8 to 10 slots for airborne school, and infantry had used all theirs up. So I noticed a lot of you, when you did go to airborne school, you went later on. And so I went to airborne school, went to a 8-week course, teach us something about intelligence, and then I was sent to Germany. And in Germany, my first job was motor and supply officer in an intelligence battalion. And I thought, now I see what they're doing. They're getting us to join and sign up for intelligence, didn't give us a substantive career type training, and just taught us, don't disclose any secrets, basically, for 8 weeks. And I went to this organization in Frankfurt, But I decided I'm going to be the best motor officer in the brigade, and so I pursued that. In those days, they had an inspection called a CMMI, Command Maintenance and Material Inspection. In Germany in those days, they didn't have a very good supply system because most of the focus was on Vietnam. But if you had covered everything on paper, if you had ordered all the parts and you knew what the problems were with the equipment, and mainly the vehicles in the motor pool, then when they came and inspected you, you could get a pass. And that was the big fear. If you failed one of those inspections, they were unannounced. You get a call at 4 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be in your motor pool at 6. Be ready. And it was, they inspected you as you were. And if you failed those, they could relieve brigade, battalion, and company commanders, and certainly motor officers. So worked real hard at that, and I passed 2 of those. My reward was they sent me to the 8th Infantry Division, and that's really what I wanted to do. I got 2 years on jump status, although I didn't get to go to jump master school because I don't know if you know how the 8th Infantry was organized then. They had 1 brigade of airborne, 509th Airborne Infantry, 2 battalions, and then you had slices of different organizations like engineers, MI, signal, that had MI slots. So I ended up commanding the 8th MI company, and we had 21 airborne slots to include the company commander. And so I did that, and really relied on my experience as a motor officer to do okay. From there, I came back to the States and on my way to Vietnam. So I came to Vietnam later than you all did. I was there in 70 and 71. I went to 101st. Was the S2 of the 2nd and 17th Cavalry Squadron. That's the air cavalry squadrons, helicopters, and it was a fantastic job for a tactical intelligence officer because the mission of the main mission of the squadron was to locate and destroy the enemy, but you did it from the air with aerial, with the Cobras and primarily Cobra gunship. So it was a great job. I flew a lot. And I got to just spend my whole career as in the air cav squadron. And so between 70 and 71, even though they were standing down, we weren't standing down. All they did is reduce the AO for the 3 infantry brigades, and they gave more of an AO to the squadron, the cav squadron. So we had the Ashaw Valley, Quezon Plains. And of course, first of the 5th mech was up on the DMZ, and we were the next group down south. Came back from that, went to an intelligence course in lieu of the advanced course. The people who make those decisions said you've had enough tactical intelligence experience. You don't need to go to the advanced course. We're going to send you to a strategic intelligence course in DC. And I went there. While I was there, I applied for a graduate program. The Army sent me to Idaho State University, and I got a master's degree in business, MBA. But my payback to the Army was I had to stay there in Pocatello, Idaho, and teach ROTC, which was fine. It was, it was general subjects, map reading, leadership, that kind of stuff. So payback was I stayed there, and what I found was, rural Idaho was pretty patriotic, and we didn't suffer the same things that other people did, other people in uniform did at that time. We were very supported by the university and the local communities. So I went from there to Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, and from there to a short tour to Korea. One thing that happened is significant I want to tell you about. When I was in Germany, in Frankfurt, all the bachelors went to the hospital club. That was the club for younger officers right there at the 97th hospital. And also, there were teachers that teachers, Department of Defense teachers that would go there. Met my wife, Joan. We've been married 52 years. She's she's from Davis, California. Who's in Sacramento? Anyway, familiar with that area now. We have one son, and he works in the entertainment industry and lives in Burbank. I have two grandsons that live there. So back to the chronology. Did a year in Korea, basically as a training plans and training officer in the S3 shop of MI Brigade over there. It wasn't it was more of one of these branch and material type jobs. But it's one of those jobs that kind of like someone said, what do you do with somebody that you got openings, but we'll put this guy there. He's had experience doing that kind of stuff. Went from there to Fort Huachuca, which is right here in Arizona. Did 2 years here as a combat developer, trying to figure out what we need in the future. Actually, I wrote the first operational concept of using a drone or a remotely piloted vehicle for intelligence purposes, and they've used, and that where that's gone in the military, just out of sight as far as programs and that sort of thing. But the first concept was I had to draft that, and then I had to brief it in the Pentagon and all that. Went from there to Fort Lewis, Washington, and I worked on I Corps, the First Corps intelligence staff. And from there, I went to the War College. They didn't send me to the Army War College. They sent me to the Naval War College. At first, I thought that was a bad deal, but it really was a good deal. The Navy has a whole different attitude, and it was more like graduate school. And by the way, I got another graduate degree just by taking their curriculum, which was like going to graduate school. It wasn't like Command General Staff College, where they say, oh, it'll be the best year of your life and you don't have to work very hard. You get the Leavenworth B. The Navy War College wasn't like that at all. You weren't going to get a Naval War College B if you didn't work hard. You worked hard for the B. But went from there. By then, one thing I forgot, and I shouldn't left out, from Fort Lewis, I went to Fort Polk, Louisiana. You probably have heard of Fort Polk. It's really not that bad. I commanded a MI battalion in the 5th Infantry Division for 2.5 years there. It was a great assignment. So soldiers were great. Not many distractions to training. We got to do a lot of great training there. I supported, the battalion supported 7 rotations to the National Training Center while I was in command, and all were successful. So it was a very high-speed division under some great division commanders. So went from there to the War College, then to Fort Huachuca, where I was the director of training for intelligence. Got picked. I have to do a little more detail. I went to Desert Storm, but I didn't get to plan much for it. I went as an individual replacement. The day after Christmas, when I was in the office, and of course we were on that Christmas schedule, as you're familiar with, and got a call from the general's aide. Had a 2-star general here, post commander and commander of the intel school. And his aide said, the general wants you to come on up. He needs to talk to you about something. Oh, yes, sir. Yes. Come on. I was driving up thinking, okay, what have I screwed up? And you see, I could have been this, or this, these things he's going to want to, grill me on. I got up there, reported, John, here, would you like a cup of coffee? We sit down on the couch, and I said, oh, this is not good. He said, well, they want you at 3rd Army in as part of the intelligence staff, intel operations as they're preparing for operations in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait. And I said, well, okay. He said, do you want to go? I said, what? Do I want to go? Well, if I told you no, I should go and resign my commission. Of course I want to go. And so yeah, I said, when do I have to be there? He said, they want you at Fort McPherson on Friday. This was like Tuesday. So, I saluted, had the MPs at Fort Huachuca run me through a couple, I hadn't been shooting much lately, so they read me through some of their courses. I got some gear and reported in, and was gone from New Year's Eve until 5th of May. Of course, the war had been over quite a while. It was that short war, but I'll tell you that it really made you proud because everything came together. All that training that we did after, and all the reconstruction, and all the sweat and blood and tears, if you will, that went into remaking the Army and making it a very professional, modern organization with tanks and all the modern equipment. Then to see all that work was fantastic. After that, I came back. The CG here made me the chief of staff of the installation. And from there, basically, I retired after 30 years. Took a job, I got a job offer to work for, basically I was working for L3 Communications as a program manager, fielding Army automation equipment that was, and I did that for a total of 10 years and then retired full, but I could work out of here, so I didn't have to disrupt the family at all or anything else. So that's basically in retirement. I had to sit down and think, well, what am I going to do? I did have some interest, but it wasn't going to keep me out of trouble. And so I decided I needed to do a few things. I tried a few things. I thought, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? You can sit at home watching daytime TV and drinking beer. You'd last about 3 or 4 years probably. So I decided I didn't want to pursue that course. And I ended up with 4 areas of volunteering. I joined a Rotary Club, and basically I'm their guy that puts together the polio program, eradication of polio. The other one was I was on the board of directors for the local credit union, which was interesting, but didn't take much time. I also was in MOA, the MOA organization. I was the scholarship chairman for 13 years. Probably ended up giving about $200,000 to local students through that. And then the thing that I'm still doing is I'm on a sheriff's assist team. It's volunteers that support the Cochise County Sheriff's Office. And I'm the commander of it now, just by attrition, I think, more than ability, but we got a lot of former law enforcement in there, and almost 85% former veterans. And we drive fully marked and equipped vehicles, wear uniforms, and patrol the entire county, run the neighborhood watch program, do vacation house checks, and support the sheriff in all kinds of community activities. One of the things we've been doing lately is escorting veterans' funerals. The local police in the town said they couldn't do it anymore. So the sheriff said he'd do it, and then he asked me, well, you can certainly do that. I said, well, not without training, but so we've done this just last year, 550 hours, just focused on veterans' funerals, going to the local state cemetery here in Sierra Vista. So that kind of wraps it up. Any questions? I think we got a couple, Jim, you've joined us,
Hey, man.
and Ed, yeah, good to see you. We've been
Yeah.
sort of summarizing for everybody else what we've done since we graduated from OCS.
Yeah.
You want to contribute and give us an idea of what you've been doing?
Yeah, I can add in what I did, which is I think a total of about 4 years active. After, of course, OCS, the initial, what do you call it? The initial tour, Fort Ord, California. What a great place. Yeah, Monterey Bay and all that. I was a training officer in a basic combat training company. I got immersed in that for 6 months. Got my orders to go back over to Vietnam, or to go to Vietnam. I don't know, everybody had their own choices no matter. I say I was lucky. I went to the 1st Cav Division, was a rifle platoon leader in the 1st Brigade, 1st of the 8th Cav. Did that from, let's see, we were there, I got there at the end of January until the 1st of October. I then was changed out of the battalion and went to the division as the aide-de-camp to one of the ADC. He was the ADC Bravo of the 1st Cav, who come up as a brand new, recently frocked brigadier from the 101st Brigade at that time, and that was in September of 1967. I stayed with him until after the Hue, and just before Ashaw Valley started up. I got sick, and so I spent a little time recuperating from that. Meanwhile, I got fired or replaced, whatever, and it was time to rotate. So I came back to the States. Spent some time in the reserve components as an advisor of all things to a armored training division headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places. But that wasn't it. It was like John was explaining how everything happens to those who are unsuspecting and unanointed. Well, that's what happened. I mean, I did everything. I was did the worst job the Army ever could give you is notification of death. So when you went into somebody's house, somebody's apartment, somebody's farmstead at 0 dark 30, so you wanted to catch them before, so you could ruin their day entirely. That's what I did. I did that all seasons, all weather. I stayed on. Didn't even have a job, so out in the civilian life yet. So I stayed for another year and took the complimentary upgrade to 03, and just stuck that out for another year, going to doing the funerals and putting on a full military funeral with a band unit from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Let me tell you about something that could really go wrong if you wanted it to. I had a couple of good NCO advisors that helped me out, so we struggled through that and learned how to do it. Got out of the Army in August of 1969. So started out as a civilian all over again, went into the trucking business, heavy hauling trucking business with my mom, who happened to have ICC permits, and we hauled building materials like concrete, rock, and asphalt and all that around the Kansas City area. And I did that until she sold the permits in 1972. So she fired me, and I went to work for the Santa Fe Railroad, of all things. and I worked for them for almost 20 years in their intermodal department, where we transferred all the rail, piggyback, freight containers and trailers and all that business there in the Kansas City, Argentine yard, Santa Fe. Along about 1977, they decided they needed me down here in Dallas, Texas. So I transferred down here. Unbeknownst to anything about Texas, I can tell you it's hot, and every once in a while it gets cold, but mostly hot. I met my wife here. We got married in 1979. We raised quarter horses for 25 years and finally sold out of the horse business. Yeah, and raised our daughter, who went down to Texas A&M. So she's really a Texan, and my wife's a native Texan from El Paso, Texas. I have no such ties. I'm still a Kansas City guy. Kansas City Chiefs go, right? But since then, then I went back to school in 1990, around there. Santa Fe Railroad decided to sell their railroad end of it to the Burlington Northern. That they call it the BNSF, but it's really the Burlington Northern Railroad now. But so they discharged all us fellows, and we're just. I stayed there for a while, and let's see, where was? Oh yeah, they fired us, and I went back to school and advanced myself educationally wise, and got my master's degree in reading. So I went and worked for the public schools. There was a plan there. I had to get 20 years in the Texas teacher retirement so I could get a benefit. Naturally, I wasn't worried too much about that, but the medical end of it was pretty good. So fortunately, as a veteran, I was able to buy 3 years and then buy 3 years. So I only had to work 14 years, and that was fine with me. When I walked out the door, I didn't let it hit me on the backside, and I retired to our home here in Plano. I sold the farm and all that business. Got reduced down to being a plot, and we had a pretty good go here in Plano, Texas now for the last, since 2005. I live about 1.5 miles from a golf course that suits me, and I'm a member of 3 different shooting ranges and clubs, whatnot. So yeah, but I'm not shooting much anymore. I've got a little glaucoma in my right eye, so I don't target up real good, but I can still shoot left-handed with my left eye. So either way, it works pretty good. Just been hanging in there. Staying out of the beaten zone on COVID, I guess, mostly. That's what happened to my daughter. She and her husband are sick right now. Got to take care of their horses. So I'm busy in the evenings. Yeah, so it's all about not getting too involved in things, but still staying involved in things. I think with me anymore, I got to take care of enough. John? It's good to see you after all these years.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah, we were in basic and AIT together.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I know a whole bunch of people that went out there in Arizona and that part of the world and retired. They said they like it there. Yeah. Yeah.
I can recommend it. And I'm not a golfer either, so but there are a lot of other things to do out here.
Yeah, there's plenty. Yeah. Yeah, you can chase antelopes.
Yeah.
Right. That's plenty to do. Yeah. I see our vaunted leader is saying, hey, come back to the main room. What has he got in mind for us?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I got a little flash, but that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you get
I don't
back
know.
to the main room?
I didn't
Yeah,
get
they're saying
that part of the instruction. He said, trust me, I'll get back to you.
I was able to look at the other breakout rooms, but I didn't see any place where I would go back to the the main group.
Yeah.
I guess he has to establish that. I don't know.
Well, I think we'll just wait till he tells us. I think, Ed, did you want to contribute anything about what you've been doing?
Well, I'll make this a quick 55 years.
Yeah.
I too.
It did go by fast,
I
didn't it?
was Fort Lewis, Washington, as an officer in a training company. I got assigned to the 1st Infantry Division in Vietnam. In the 2nd Brigade, I was with the 1st Battalion, 16th Infantry, and Bravo Company. Served as a platoon leader for about 5 or 6 months, maybe a month as an executive officer, and then my final assignment was advising the Regional Forces Popular Forces, and was able to then come back to the United States, back to Fort Lewis, Washington, where I was a garrison company commander, and I left the service in early 1969. I was out for a year, and I started my professional life in human resources. I was a recruiter for RCA Service Division. A friend of mine had a cousin who was in the reserves, so I got talked into the reserves, where I remained for like 22 years. Eventually retiring from the reserves as a lieutenant colonel, and my last assignment was a reserve instructor for Command and General Staff College. My primary working life was spent with the state of Maryland. I was human resources director for 2 universities, the human resources director for the State Department of Education, human resources director for the State Highway Administration, and also worked in the Wage and Salary Division. Retired from the state of Maryland, and worked in the private sector for 7 years for a research and development firm on the Baltimore Beltway, and retired from that 17 years ago. In the first 7 or 8 years of my retirement, I did a lot of part-time things that I would not have otherwise had time for. Among other things, I worked on a golf course. I was election judges. I was worked for a home remodeler. I was a safety inspector. I worked in the Census Bureau. But in the last 6 or 7 years, the only thing that I've done is my wife and I have traveled. We've probably been to about 40 or 50 countries in the last 7 years. And that's it, folks.
That's all.
Okay, thanks, Vince. Thanks, Ed. Vince, you just joined us. We're doing is telling each other something about ourselves and our, oh, he's gone.
Hey, John, I just got a message flash that Steve wants us to come home.
Okay.
Yes, he does. He just sent me over and said, come home.
Did he tell you how we do that?
So down in your right-hand corner, you see where it says leave room.
Right.
Okay, so you leave the room and wait a minute, then you're going to get on your screen, it should actually take you to the main group.
Okay.
It's really, you just punch on that leave room button,
As an IT
and it'll
group,
take you right into the main screen.
And then just leave the break.
Okay.
My
Thanks,
lower
guys.
right-hand corner has 3 dots and the word more. Does anyone have that?
No.
no,
Because when I click on that, it doesn't say leave the breakout rooms. Anyway, I'll do a few clicks here and there and see.
Okay. I'm gonna
If you
leave.
get lost, you could rejoin
Yeah, I can
again.
do that, sure.
Okay,
Okay, leaving the room.
so we're going.
We're gone? Okay.
So I'll just go ahead and close the room down. They're all gone except Ed Flack. He's gone too. Okay, they're all back. Everybody's back. Nope, Fleck is at the help desk.
So Pacific.
He didn't have a leave room button at the right-hand bottom.
There, nope, not quite. Okay, I'll just close the room. Nope, he's gone. He should be back here. All right, everybody is out of the rooms. All right. John, did you have any success in recording?
Well, I hit the record button and it looked like it was recording.
Okay, well,
You're gonna have to tell me.
yeah. At the end, when everything shuts down, it'll send you a message to say it's creating a file. It's working on a file. And I'll tell you, if you get that message, I'll tell you where it is,
Okay.
and then you can send it on to me. I didn't organize properly to get somebody in each of the other rooms, so I don't know if anything is being recorded. But your room seemed to be the most populated, so that's pretty good.
Got rid of that because I'm doing it on my computer.
Food.
He had some great narratives on what people have been doing in the last 50 years. That's very interesting.
Impressive.
It has been a little while.
I don't know who those guys were because I didn't recognize any of them from the books, but
All right.
like we had our names there.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I noticed it's pretty heavy down there towards the bottom end of the alphabet.
Well, yeah, I had a lot of the names from our little effort in 2001. Plus, I have other ways of finding you, sneaky little things. Once upon a time, the Army in all its wisdom decided that let's see, where is it? They decided that they wanted to make what they call the stud book. So they published this thing and sold it for $6.25 or something. And as you see, here's everybody's name, social security number, and date of birth. Colin Powell is there. Henry Shelton is there. Everybody's there. All the regular Army officers. And a couple of you made the list as well when you went over to regular Army. So with the social security number, you can find anybody.
Yeah.
And the Army, however, I was involved in suing the Army at one point because I found a file that they had in the bowels of one of the contractors for the Department of Defense with 600,000 image files of award orders from Vietnam. And I wanted that file, and I offered to pay the cost of copying it and shipping it to me. And I made the mistake of just saying, okay, when they said, we better check with somebody for permission. Because that was the downfall. When they check with somebody and say, hell no, it's got social security numbers on it.
Yeah.
And if you give us $1 million, we'll edit out the social security numbers. Right. Yeah, like that's going to happen. So, but they basically, in 1968, after 30 some years, they finally got around to using social security numbers. And then 20 years later, they realized they made a mistake and they classified everything that they've ever done.
Yeah.
And there's no real good solution for it. At one point, I was planning on publishing that list I showed you and just telling everybody that they should change their social security numbers because it's all been compromised. But at that time, they had a changeover in the Secretary of Defense's office. And I figured Rumsfeld didn't need me to bother him at the time. He had his hands full. So I stopped that. But it really is unfortunate because it's today I can do history on Vietnam because people have got pieces of paper under their bed and they've all sent copies to me. And I've got filing cabinets over here full of paperwork. But today, anybody who's doing unit history doesn't have that luxury. Everything is electronic. Hell, the people who got the best files on the history are the lawyers in the Army. So that's a bit of a problem. Anyway.
Well, I'm in about 12 books if you want to read any of my stuff.
Who are we talking? Who's here?
That was Dale Dickey.
Dale, yeah. Well, you tell me about it. Are they your books?
No, different people have written. I'm in Hackworth's books. I'm in a new book, Rangers in Vietnam. I'm in Tango 1-1. I'm in Last Light with the Boys, and I forget all the books.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you were in About Face, because Hackworth and I, though he doesn't pay much, and he didn't pay any attention to me. We don't get along together.
Well, Hackworth and I didn't get along. That's why I'm in his books. He's not very generous with me. We did get along later after he got out and I got out.
Anyway, one of the things we discussed in the other meeting, which you were not all there, is I'm offering to on August 23rd of this year, I'm offering to do a Zoom meeting again with the same list of people, and we'll repeat it. You know, it's not going to be that much of a difficulty to do that. We might come up with some better ideas on organizing it and some more experience on how it works. In the meantime, let me ask you all to send anything you have, like write up a bio about your history. Send me, I think it was Bob who said had a bunch of pictures. Somebody had a bunch of pictures. Send them, scan them, and send them, and I'll put them in that file that I have. I'll resend that file, and I'll try to figure out a way to resend it so it's more accessible to all.
Yeah, I've got a number of pictures from OCS. I think I saw that you were talking about an Instamatic. I think that's what I had too. And I've located about 15 of them, but someplace I know I've got 40 or 50 of them. So I'll try to find them before August and get them to you, Steve.
And give me some captions to go along with it.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I think the best picture I have is the one of Dale Dickey sitting on the ruins of his room.
Oh.
With a disgusted picture, disgusted feeling on his face.
Well, it happened more than once.
I would caption that. This is the moment that Dale decided he wanted to go airborne ranger so he could wreak havoc on everybody.
Well, I became a TAC officer, so I sure hell paid back.
Right.
So wasn't it Dale? Wasn't it you and Henry Copeland that found the pig?
Yep. Put it in the old man's office.
I think that's probably one of the best stories.
You know, when I graduated, I still owed the company 26 weeks of restriction. One of the pictures. When you guys turned blue, I still had to wear a black helmet for like 2 weeks.
One of the pictures that I have, I know that Henry's in it, and you might be too, is of the pig. Henry and the pig's got him on a leash. So yep. I'll see if I can find out.
We grease that sucker up with Missoula oil.
Was that Captain Taylor or Dingwall?
Dingwall.
Yeah,
We put it in his bathroom when he kept his coffee cup in there. He went in the morning to open the door and the damn pig started going crazy.
He wanted a garbage disposal. He said, he picked Mel first, but Mel bowed out. So that's where the pig came from.
I don't remember where it came from. I just remember me getting restriction for it.
well, I remember part of it. I think that some of the wives, was Copeland married?
Not then, nope.
Okay, well, some of the wives went over, I'm almost sure that they got it in Alabama.
Yep.
And brought it back. Sorry, Steve. I got carried away.
Oh, by all means, keep it up. Some of the stories you really have to write the individual stories down.
Steve, what was the name of the senior tack?
Adams.
Okay.
John C. Adams.
Adams called me to his office early one morning. Said, I got a problem. Said Dingwall and Hollifeld were apprehended by the MPs at the Lawson Field Officers Club. MPs apparently had an edict you couldn't park in the grass. So the MPs tried to get them to move, and they started giving the MPs a ration of crap. Dangerous thing. So the MPs wrote him up. So Adams calls him to his office. Said, I need some help. He said, Captain Dingwall and Lieutenant Hollifeld got in a tussle with the MPs, and their name is going to be sent to the chief of staff. Can you do anything about it? So I run over to the provost marshal's office. Duty officer, a guy by the name of Captain Clemens, who was the former commander of the 54th Company. He knew me. He said, okay. He says, they really gave these MPs a ration of crap. Let me talk to them. So they okayed it. They said, forget it. I run back to Adams and I tell him everything's okay. He said, well, good. I'll be glad to tell the captain. I said, no, here's what you need to tell the captain. I am on restriction to my wall locker for something I didn't do. Get the picture, Lieutenant? I was off restriction. But Dingwall at Hollifeld, I remember that.
Hollifeld used to pick on me all the time.
There's the pig.
There it is.
There.
That's the picture I was talking about.
Yep.
You go. Recognize yourselves?
Speaking of Henry, at the when we were marching over to graduate, remember how when you were giving marching commands, you had to enunciate the words and you couldn't do the NCO stuff. I remember that Copeland broke out in a bunch of his old cadence calls. I do remember that and how hilarious it was.
He was quite the character. I talked to him about 2 years ago. He's in Texas somewhere.
Who, Copeland?
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to him. He's got a big Arabian horse farm between here and somewhere between here and Dallas, between Houston and Dallas. And he has boarding for horses. He has horses to be studs, training, all kinds of things about horses.
Are you green onions or do you need them all?
Okay.
His father was the warden in Troy, Alabama at the prison.
Maybe that's where the pig came from.
I don't know about that, but I went home with him one time and all the inmates kept asking, Mr. Cope, how you doing, buddy?
Gentlemen, I have to leave. I hope to see you August 23rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Steve, it's been great. Thank you so much for all of your effort. It's been enjoyable very much.
I've got to take off too, everybody. So thanks, Steve. Yeah, and August 23rd is good for me. It's great.
Anybody who hasn't downloaded that file should contact me after this is over and let me walk you through it.
I endorse that. Yeah, you absolutely have
I'm,
to download
I'm
it.
still hung up on it.
Yeah, you're gonna need a week to help me.
Yeah.
I'll see you all August 23rd as well.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Steve.
Right, Steve. We'll see you
Good
August
talk with all you
23rd on
guys.
the
Take
Zoom.
care.
Bill Witcher, say hi to Mary.
I'm going to, guys.
Gotta go.
Thanks.